had a mentor. His name's Charlie Tremendous Jones, and he had as a quote. He says, "You are the same today as you'll be in 5 years, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. It's who we hang out with, it's what we put in our head that determines our character as a person." In high school, if you hung around smokers, who were you? Right? If you hung around jocks, you're a jock. Same thing applies today. If we hang around people that complain, bitch, and moan, that becomes a conversation that plays in our head. But if we hang around people that are positive and solution searching, then that too will be the conversation. Now, he and I together had a very great fortune to do this book. It's called Positive Impact. And over the time we're going to have together, I'm going to share with you amazing people I've met along my own journey, but also some books you might want to have in your own success library. And it begins with this one. It's called Positive Impact. The moral of this comes down to one simple basic rule. What's common sense to you is genius to somebody else. What's common sense to you, someone else is waiting to hear. For example, my son is 12 years old and he plays this game called Fortnite. And he goes crazy and people love it. But guess what? His friends and neighbors come by and pay him $20 to sit right next to him to watch him play Fortnite. Why? Because he knows all the tricks. He knows all the techniques. So what's common sense to him is pure brilliance to somebody else. And the question is, what is your common sense that someone else is waiting to hear? Would anyone like a free copy of this book? Now, this little gem over here is one of my favorite ones. It's called Ambition. It's about getting off your ass and taking action. Remember this, it is the action in the law of attraction that makes our dreams a reality. We got to think it, we got to feel it. Ultimately, we got to get off our ass, we got to take action, and we got to do it. His hand went up first. All right, this one over here is one that everyone should have in their personal success library. I'll give it to you so you don't beat me up. It's called The Power of Proximity. Surrounding yourself with positive, like-minded people. And remember this, we are a reflection of the people we hang around the most, our income, our attitude, and our lifestyles, the average of the group. If we hang around people that will be positive and solution searching, then that will be the conversations that constantly play. The big question is, who is our cheerleading section? People ask every time I go around, why is it that I give away so many books when I speak? And the truth is, they didn't sell so good. So over here, I got a little gem right here. It's with my mentor. His name is Jim Stovall, and he did this book together with me called Passport to Success. I'm going to give that to you. I'll kiss it so you think it's a sex book and win it. There you go. So most people know me best for working with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, where I've been very blessed. But I'm going to tell you a story behind the story. You see, Napoleon Hill, raise your hand if you've heard of Think and Grow Rich. Everybody, right? But here's a story you might not have heard. You see, Napoleon Hill was a young, aspiring magazine reporter. He was 23 years old. He gained access to the richest man of the world, Andrew Carnegie. Was supposed to be maybe 3-hour interview, turned out to be 3 full days and 3 full nights. And at the end of the interview, Carnegie says, "I like you." He says, "Here's an opportunity." He said, "Work for me for free for 20 years and I'll send you on a mission. You'll meet all my friends and write the first ever formula for success." Napoleon Hill reached into his pocket. He didn't even have 2 nickels to rub together and said, "Work for free for what?" And he turned to his host and says, "Mr. Carnegie, not only will I accept that journey, you can rest assured I'll complete the task." Carnegie says, "Fine, you've got yourself a job." But Hill says, "Why are they going to talk to me? I'm just a kid. I'm nobody. I'm not connected." He says, "You don't worry about that." He goes, "I'll write you a letter of recommendation. When they see it, they'll know I sent you, give you all the time you want." He sat down with Edison, Einstein, the Fords, the Rockefellers, and wrote the 20th best-selling book in history. But here's what you don't know. Carnegie was a stickler for action, and he gave his guest 60 seconds to make up his mind to work for free for 20 years. And when Napoleon Hill said yes, Carnegie pulled out a stopwatch he began in his pocket. There was 31 seconds left. But the best part of that story is that Carnegie made that same offer to over 250 men before Napoleon Hill. He was the only person to say yes. Everyone else had a bad case of the one size. That means I'm going to take action. One side, get the kids out of the house. One side, get the big break. But it's the people that take that action in the law of attraction, they're the ones that we tell the story about. Well, that was in 1908. Fast forward 100 years to 2008, where the surviving children of Napoleon Hill and the foundation wrote a very similar letter that Carnegie wrote to Hill, and they gifted it to me. And they gave me basically a Willy Wonka ticket to travel the world to meet the most powerful and influential people of all time and tell their stories in books and film. And the very first project we did was called 3 Feet from Gold. It's a story about a gold miner named R.U. Darby. He's got gold fever. He knows nothing about gold, but he's got the bug, kind of like everyone in the crypto space right now, right? He goes out west and he starts digging. He finds a little hole, a little nugget, and it's filled with these little shiny gems. He gets excited. He runs back home and he tells his family and friends. They chip in money to buy equipment to pull it out by the ore cart. And sure enough, the first cart comes out of the ground and it's filled with gold. Woohoo, he's rich! But then the gold runs out. They kept digging. There's no more gold. They kept digging, but the gold was completely vanished. Defeated, he walks out of the mine and sees a junk man walking by. He says, hey, buddy, give me $200. I'll sell you the mine, the deed, the equipment. I'm going back home to something I know. Well, the junk man surveying the equipment was worth 10 grand because the family chipped in and said, you got yourself a deal before he could change his mind. Darby goes home a quitter, defeated. But the junk man goes to an engineer and says, what happened? This cat had gold and ran out. And the engineer starts laughing. He says, that's mining 101. Everyone knows that gold runs in a straight line. It's called the gold vein. What Darby did is he came in one side, hit the treasure, and popped back into dirt. He says, go back to where they discovered treasure, go 3 feet, just 90 degrees the opposite way, and you'll tap back into the vein. Not only did the junk man pull millions upon millions of dollars out, but that still helps fill Fort Knox today. And the moral is, how many times have we or someone we know quit one class short from a degree, or sales, or marketing? It's easy to quit, but it's the people that persevere and go that extra 3 feet, they're the ones that we tell the stories about. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but when Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, he was turned down for 15 years from every publisher. They said if Aristotle and Socrates couldn't write the first ever formula of success, what makes some 23-year-old kid he did? Well, when I did this book, I was not turned down by every publisher in New York. No, most of them just canceled their appointment and never met with me. They go, who are you, right? And I couldn't figure out what to do. And finally, I called the Napoleon Hill Foundation and said, I need some help. I'm just not getting anywhere. And it says, you need a co-author. And he said, you're not going to believe this, but I've been talking to this amazing young woman, and she wants to get involved with the foundation as well. That's where you enter the most amazing human in this room, to me, Sharon Lecter. A round of applause for her right there. So much so, to the point, you wouldn't even believe this, but when this book came out, she got a meeting with the actual owners of Barnes & Noble. Everyone's goal in history when you write a book is to be featured in Barnes & Noble. She got a meeting with the owners, and guess what? We negotiated a deal where this is the first and only book in history published by Barnes & Noble themselves. And we realized if you could cut out the middleman, we took no advance, and we had a 50-50 royalty, but by doing that, every time you walked into a bookstore, what would you see? And who's got a bigger email list? Me, Sharon, or Barnes & Noble? And the secret is surround yourself with people that are getting the results that you want for yourself. The first person I interviewed for this thing was a guy that blew my mind. His name's John Schwartz. He created something called super string theory. If you ever watched The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon figured it out. And here's the way it was. I asked him a question. What do successful people do different than other people? He said, successful people seek counsel and failures listen to opinion. I go, what's the difference? He goes, successful people seek counsel, but failures listen to opinion. And I said, like what? I go, well, if I go to a family friend and say, hey, I'm going to write a best-selling book, they might try to talk me out of it because guess what? They've never written a best-selling book. But if I go to Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul and sold 1 billion copies, and say I want to write a book, he's going to say, Greg, sit down. Here's what you need to know, and give you counsel based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. John Schwartz said, if we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignoring people's opinion, that's the day your life would change. The big question is, where are we getting our information from? Who is it that we're listening to? And the important thing is, Seek counsel from people that are getting the results that we want for ourselves. Here's a word, today. For example, if I went to someone who sold the best-selling book 30 years ago, is it the same today? There was no Instagram. Things have changed. Who's getting the results that we want for ourselves today? Now, the first book I ever wrote was called The Millionaire Mentor. And when you write a book, you do something called the query letter. It says who you are, what's your message, why you're an expert who's going to read your book. I sent out these query letters every single day, 8 of them. And every single week, I'd go back to the mailbox and there'd be rejection letters. I was turned down 268 times in a row for my first book. The 269th person said, we'll do it. All we want you to do is change the title, the beginning, the middle, and the end part. It wasn't that good, trust me. A lot of people don't know this, but I'm dyslexic. So the book was like dog beaver boat car. It made no sense, right? I didn't take it personal. I sought counsel and said, what can I do? And they said, you need a ghostwriter. You need someone to breathe some life into it. Someone came on board, and thank goodness, because one quote from that book was shared 37 million times. I guarantee you've seen it on coffee mugs, t-shirts, bumper stickers. You just didn't know it came from me. It says, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan, and a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. A famous quote shared 37 million times from a book turned down 268. What if I would have quit after 50 rejections, or 80, or 150, or 212? And again, it's the 3 feet from gold story about never giving up, which led me to the follow-up book called Stickability. Would anyone like a free copy of this book? That was very loud over there. All right, I'm gonna give it to you. Now, Stickability is pretty cool. The first person I had a chance to do this one is a guy named Marty Cooper. Marty Cooper invented something called a cell phone. Does anyone ever use a cell phone? I saw him on 60 Minutes. I said, I gotta go meet this cat. 3 days later, I'm in his office, and I asked him a question. I said, Marty, what does stickability mean to you? And he said, stickability has to be parallel with another word called flexibility. You have to be willing to adapt and adjust. If you don't, you get stuck. And he told the story about a spider monkey. He said in the rainforest, a spider monkey is the most quick, nimble creature. You can't harpoon it, spear it, catch it. It's too wiry. One hunter figured it out. His name was San Juan. He took a heavy log, drilled a tiny hole, dropped a peanut in, left it at the base of the jungle. The monkey would come down from the treetop and smell that nut, grab a hold of it, reach his hand inside that log and grab a hold on with dear life, and he wouldn't let go. The hunter comes by an hour later, captures this elusive spider monkey. Now, all the monkey's got to do is let go, but he holds on with dear life, thinking it's nut, it's nutrition, it's saving him. And the question right now I have for you, are you holding on to your own nut? But it could be in the form of that job, or fear, or guilt, or the past, or remorse. And what we're holding on with dear life, thinking it is saving us, just like the monkey thought the nut was, could also be the thing that's leading to your own demise right now. Sometimes we have to have the courage and the fortitude to simply let go, adapt, and adjust so we can live to fight another day. From there, I got to sit down with Truett Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A restaurants. I said, Truett, I want to be a billionaire like you. What can I do? And he said, that's easy, Greg. Stop planning. I go, what? I go, that goes against everything I've ever learned, everything I taught. And he says, Greg, last year you had a lot of plans. I said, yeah. He goes, how did that work out for you? He says, 5 years ago you had a master plan, but you didn't hear of the thing called COVID. He says, I guarantee you've hit a goal from time to time because you're scrappy, but how it came to fruition wasn't as you thought. And I go, well, what's the secret? He goes, look for and capitalize on unexpected opportunity. I said, like what? He goes, well, if I'm in my sofa, in my home, and I want to get to the end of the street, he says, you get off your ass, you take action, you move towards your goal. He goes, a planner is going to plan every step where they're going to pause and take a break. If a sprinkler comes on, it goes against plan, he runs back home, not me. He goes, I'm looking for opportunity. Did a kid leave a skateboard or a bicycle out I could borrow to make my journey short? If I get real lucky, I'll wave down a neighbor driving by and hitch a ride. He says, either way, I'll get to my goal. I'll get to my destination. I'm just not so caught up in exactly how it has to transpire. And I realized that the most successful people have that constant mindset. This little book right here is called Success and Something Greater. Okay, I'm going to give you this one right here. You're going to love this. And this one right here, it's called Personal Development. I'm going to go ahead and give that one to you because I haven't given you one. Over there, I like that. Bob Proctor and I together did this book called Thoughts Are Things. And guess what? Thoughts are not things. If thoughts were things, I'd be a slice of pizza because I miss lunch, right? But when we're done and I go out and get a piece of pizza, my thoughts become reality by the actions in which we take. There's an old bumper sticker that says, I can learn every single thing I need to know about you by the company you keep. I can learn everything I need to know about you by the circumstances in which you're in, because we are where we chose to be. If you come up and say, I want a Lamborghini, but don't now own a Lamborghini, it just means that you weren't willing to sacrifice and do what's necessary to have a Lamborghini. Look, everyone always asks what my favorite interview. It's like picking your favorite child, but I'm going to give you my best. It came from a poet and a philosopher, an actual wordsmith named Evander Holyfield. You know the boxing guy? I didn't see it coming. I said, Evander, how did you win more heavyweight championships than anyone? He said, that's easy. I have a higher standard. In sports, I showed up early, left late, invented exercises. I have a higher standard. I won more championships. I said, didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah, it hurts, but when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain. You don't focus on the blows. As soon as you do, you end up on your ass knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, and then they wonder why they never become a champion. He pulled me in tight, Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He says, you know what the funny thing is? When you do win the championship, he says, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise your hand in victory and they put a big shiny belt around your waist. He says, at that moment and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room has every bruise and excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard. So in closing, look, I don't know everyone in this room, but I do know one thing about you. Everyone comes to you for great advice. Everyone comes to you for counsel. Know why? Because you're a leader. You've been taking care of your friends and your family and your peers and your coworkers, and that's great. But guess what? It is time to change one thing. It is time to get selfish. It's time to draw an imaginary line in the sand. And you step across and say, it's my turn. I've got that idea for a book or a movie or an entrepreneurial dream. I will not take it to my grave. We draw a line in the sand and step across and understand that our greatest success will always come just one step beyond our greatest setback. We draw that line in the sand. We step across and say, it is my turn. And when you want to say die and throw in the towel, when you cannot go another step further, don't give up. You are great, you are special, and you are magical. You are in this room for a very specific reason because you were chosen to do something spectacular. Never give up and never say die, because you too could just be 3 feet from gold.